Most preppers don't fail because they weren't prepared. They fail because they were prepared the wrong way. They fail because they were blinded by the very things they thought would save them. The expensive gear, the meticulously stacked supplies, the detailed binder full of plans. It all creates a dangerous illusion of safety. You look at your basement shelves, packed to the ceiling with food and water filters, and a calm washes over you. You think, I'm ready. Let the world do its worst. But that feeling, that sense of completion, is the first and most fatal mistake you will ever make. It is the quiet whisper of complacency that arrives long before the real storm. This isn't going to be a comfortable conversation. I'm not here to validate your purchases or praise your foresight. I'm here to deliver a hard truth. It forces you to look past the gear and confront the real weaknesses in your strategy, your own psychology, your neighbors, your routines, your rigid, breakable plans. We're going to talk about the prepper mistakes you will never see coming. They don't announce themselves with a bang. They creep in silently, disguised as security and confidence. They dismantle your entire world from the inside out before you even realize the fight has begun. The central claim: your failure won't be a dramatic last stand against a horde of marauders. It will be quiet. It will be anticlimactic. It will be the result of a single, overlooked detail, a flawed assumption you never thought to question. It might be the friend you trusted, the backup plan you never tested, the simple, grinding exhaustion that erodes your will to make one more difficult decision. We're going to pull back the curtain on these silent killers. In this space, we will examine the anatomy of failure, not to scare you, but to arm you. What I'm about to share is built on years of observation. Consider this a corrective, a necessary and brutally honest audit. You'll see a dark house, gear collecting dust, and a man at the window, watching the street for obvious threats while the real danger is already inside his home, inside his head. This process will be uncomfortable. It might even make you angry. But listening, really listening, could be the one thing that saves your life when everything else you've prepared for falls apart. The first stage of failure doesn't feel like failure at all. It feels like victory. It happens right after you've ticked off the last item on your initial checklist. The water barrels are full. The pantry is stocked with enough freeze-dried food to last a year. You've got your bug-out bag by the door, your medical kits organized, your firearms cleaned and zeroed. You run a drill, maybe a simple power outage simulation for a weekend. Everything goes according to plan. The generator kicks on. The family knows what to do. In that moment, a powerful wave of relief hits you. You think, I did it. I'm good. This feeling is the most dangerous drug in the survival world. This initial success is where the rot begins to set in. You've built a fortress of supplies and start to believe the walls are impenetrable. Your visible stock becomes a monument to your foresight. Practicing a few basic drills creates a smugness that's hard to shake. You faced a simulated crisis and won. Now you feel you have the right to relax your guard. You stop scanning for new threats with the same urgency you once had. That hunger for knowledge starts to fade. It is replaced by a quiet, settled confidence, a belief that the hard part is over. This mindset is a trap. It mistakes a static solution for a dynamic problem. The world doesn't stop changing just because your basement is full. The nature of the threat shifts. New dangers emerge. But your plan becomes a sacred text you're unwilling to edit. You've invested so much that questioning it feels like admitting defeat. You start to see preparations as a finish line. You've conquered the idea of a crisis, so you believe you've conquered the crisis itself. This is the psychological bedrock of overconfidence. You prove to yourself in a controlled, predictable environment that you can handle it. Your brain rewards you with security. But survival isn't about passing a test you wrote for yourself. It's about facing an exam you've never seen, in a language you don't speak, where the rules change with every question. That first, easy victory doesn't prepare you for that. It just makes you believe you don't need to study anymore. It's the calm before the storm, but you mistake it for the calm after. There's a dangerous belief that has infected the prepper community, spreading faster than any virus. It's the idea that you can buy your way to safety. This is gear worship, the conviction that the right equipment can substitute for skill. A full shopping cart is not a full training regimen. You spend hours online researching the tactical knife with the best steel, the military-grade backpack with the most mala webbing, the water filter that can purify thousands of gallons. Every click of add to cart gives you a little hit of dopamine, a feeling of accomplishment. You've acquired another piece of the survival puzzle, but you're not solving a puzzle. You're collecting pieces. Preparation becomes a hobby, like collecting stamps, or model trains. Focus shifts from readiness to acquisition. You compare your gear to what other people have. You get caught up in brand names and specifications. The garage slowly fills with expensive kit that never moves beyond the shelf. A state-of-the-art trauma kit sits unused. You've never practiced applying a tourniquet under pressure, a top-of-the-line shortwave radio, but you don't know how to properly ground an antenna for a clear signal. You've bought the solution, so you feel you don't need to understand the problem. The gear becomes a talisman, an object you believe has protective power. The brutal truth: buying replaces training. It's easier, faster, instant gratification. Learning a skill is hard. It takes time, repetition, failure. It hurts. You get blisters learning to use an axe. You get frustrated trying to tie knots in the dark. It's more comfortable to buy a chainsaw and a box of zip ties, but when crisis hits, the man who spent 100 hours practicing with a simple bow drill will make fire. The man who bought the fancy ferro rod and never used it will have a cold, useless piece of metal. Tool versus skill, they are not the same. The core fallacy: stockpiles can't replace planning. New tools can't replace fundamental skills. You're not preparing for a disaster. You bought in there a week. States Popin Sure Alger Barberindau Panbokadaku Thiem for Pofar. When Napu Muffin Danan. You're building a museum of survival, filled with artifacts you don't know how to use. When the time comes, gear won't save you. What you can do with gear will. If you spend all your time shopping instead of training, the answer is Na monster crying per batser in bin stan, ye batser rein, on not much. Your expensive collection becomes a monument to misplaced faith. In the mind of the average prepper, the human threat is a caricature. It's the stuff of movies and novels, a roving band of leather-clad marauders, armed to the teeth, sweeping across the landscape like locusts. You spend your time planning fields of fire, reinforcing your doors, imagining an Alamo-style last stand. But this is a fantasy. It lets you focus on a distant, faceless enemy while ignoring the real threat. The most immediate threat isn't a stranger 100 miles away. It's your neighbor. It's your friend. It's the family member who didn't prepare. You've pictured the raider, but have you pictured Dave from 2 houses down? The friendly guy who borrows your lawnmower and waves every morning. He has a wife, 2 young kids. He always called your prepping extreme. He has maybe 3 days of junk food in his pantry, a case of bottled water. When the trucks stop running, when grocery shelves are stripped bare, his reality will shatter. On day 4, his kids are crying from hunger. He isn't a raider, he's a desperate father. He knows you have food. He knows you have water. He will come to your door, not as a monster, but as a man trying to save his family. Social collapse doesn't happen overnight, not with a thunderous crash. It's a slow, quiet decay. It begins not with violence but with conversations. The unplanned arrival of your sister, her family of 4, showing up at your door with nothing but the clothes on their backs, assuming you'll take them in. Your supplies, carefully calculated for your own family for 6 months, are now only good for 2. Friendly neighbor on day 4 asking for a little food. Back on day 7 asking for more. His request now sounding less like a plea and more like a demand. The social contract, the unspoken rules of politeness and boundaries, begin to fray. A family argument erupts over rations. Your spouse wants to give more to the neighbors. You think you're already giving too much. Your teenager sees his friends suffering, secretly gives away a week's worth of food. Trust within your household, the bedrock of your survival plan, starts to crack. Access to your resources becomes contention, negotiation, potential betrayal. A large group of your spouse's co-workers arrives at your gate at dusk. They know you were a prepper. They aren't hostile, just desperate. How do you say no? Do you have the resources? If you let them in, who is in charge? If you turn them away, what do they do next? Do they leave peacefully, or do they come back later, convinced you're a hoarder who left them to die? Every interaction is a minefield of moral and tactical dilemmas. You are forced to choose between your humanity and your family's survival. Every choice feels like the wrong one. This is the failure that gear cannot solve. You can't shoot your way out of these problems. These are not tactical challenges. They are human ones. Without this, your fortress will be dismantled from the inside. The threat isn't the stranger trying to break down your door. It's the desperation you willingly let walk right through it. Section 1. the one-way ticket to failure. There's a fatal flaw hardwired into the way most people think, and it bleeds directly into their survival plans. It's the tendency to find a single good solution and then stop looking. You build your entire strategy around this one perfect plan, polishing it until it shines. You have your bug-in location, your fortress, you've spent a fortune reinforcing it, or you have your bug-out route, a single meticulously mapped path to a remote cabin. You have one primary water source, a well in the backyard. You have one power solution, that big diesel generator. You've created a masterpiece of preparedness, but it's a masterpiece with a single point of failure. And in a crisis, that single point is where the entire structure will shatter. This is the failure of having no plan B. It's a violation of the most fundamental rule of survival, redundancy. 2 is 1, and 1 is none. You hear the phrase, but you don't truly internalize it. You assume your one plan will work. The road will be clear. The well water will stay pure. The generator will always start. These are not plans. They are prayers. A real crisis is an engine of chaos specifically designed to find your weakest link and break it. That one perfect route out of the city? It's the same route everyone else is thinking of, and it will be a 100-mile-long parking lot of dead cars and desperate people within hours of the event. Your plan is to bug in, but a chemical fire breaks out 2 miles upwind, making the air in your home toxic. Your fortress has become a gas chamber. You have to leave, now. But you never planned a secondary bug-out location or packed go-bags suited for a sudden evacuation on foot. Your one plan, bugging in, has not only failed, it has actively trapped you. Or consider your water. You have a well, but a nearby industrial plant floods, and its chemical runoff contaminates the groundwater for miles around. Your well is now poisoned. You have filters, but they aren't rated for heavy metals and industrial solvents. Your single source of life is now a source of death. It's the same with power. That generator is a lifesaver until it isn't. A tiny specialized part breaks, a fuel injector, a circuit board. In a world with no supply chains, that generator is now a 400-pound paperweight. You had one solution for power, and when it failed, your ability to heat your home, preserve your food, and power your communications failed with it. Having only one plan, one route, or one solution isn't a strategy, it's a gamble. We've talked about gear, plans, people, but the final and most overlooked point of failure isn't in your basement or on your street, it's inside your own head. This is the silent killer, mental and emotional collapse. You can have a mountain of food, an arsenal of weapons, and an impenetrable fortress. But none of it matters if your mind breaks. And it will break long before your supplies run out if you are not prepared for the crushing psychological weight of a real crisis. We spend so much time planning for the physical challenges of survival that we completely ignore the mental battlefield, and that is where the war is truly won or lost. The mind is the first and last domino. The primary enemy is fatigue, a deep soul-crushing exhaustion that infects every thought and action. In a crisis, sleep is a luxury. You're on watch, you're dealing with constant minor emergencies, you're rationing food, and you're living in a state of hypervigilance. This isn't just being tired, it's a bone-deep weariness that degrades your ability to think clearly. It leads directly to decision paralysis. You're faced with a choice: which route to take, how to fix a broken tool, whether to trust a stranger, and your exhausted brain simply freezes. Then comes the moral stress. You will be forced to make choices that go against every fiber of your being. You will have to turn away a desperate family. You may have to use violence to defend your own. You will have to ration food to your crying children. These actions, even when necessary for survival, leave deep psychological wounds. They create guilt, shame, and internal conflict that can shatter a person's will to live. This psychological decay leads to tunnel vision. Your world shrinks until the only thing you can see is the immediate threat or the immediate need. You become obsessed with the dwindling woodpile, or the strange noise you heard outside, and you lose all strategic perspective. You stop thinking about tomorrow or next week. You just react, often poorly, to whatever is right in front of you. A tired leader, fixated on a minor dispute over rations, freezes at a critical crossroads, unable to decide which path to take while his group waits, exposed and vulnerable. The supplies are still there. The plan is still in the binder. But the mind that was supposed to execute it has already surrendered. Just as you prep supplies, you must prep your mind. Mental resilience is not a personality trait, it is a skill that can be trained and a system that can be implemented. It begins with the ruthless prioritization of sleep. In a crisis, sleep is not a luxury, it is a critical resource, just like water, ammunition. You must enforce strict sleep cycles. Create a rotation of duties for your group so that everyone gets a meaningful block of uninterrupted rest. A well-rested mind can solve problems that an exhausted mind cannot even comprehend. Sacrificing sleep is a fool's bargain. It makes you weaker, not safer. To combat decision paralysis, you must simplify your choices before the crisis ever begins. Create simple, preset rules and escalation plans. For example, if we hear gunfire within a mile, we go to lockdown, no questions asked. If the primary water source is compromised, we immediately switch to the secondary source and begin boiling all water. These are not complex strategies. They are simple, binary triggers that remove the burden of deliberation in a high-stress moment. You are making the hard decisions now, in the calm, so that you only have to execute them in the chaos. This frees up mental bandwidth for the problems you couldn't predict. You must also build in rituals to anchor your group's morale. It can be as simple as stopping for 5 minutes every morning to have a hot drink together and state one goal for the day. It can be reading a chapter from a book aloud in the evening. These small, predictable moments of normalcy create a psychological buffer against the chaos outside. They remind you that you are still human, still a family, still a team. They provide a sense of continuity and purpose when everything else is falling apart. Finally, you must rotate leadership and responsibilities. The burden of command is too heavy for one person to carry indefinitely. Even in a family unit, different people should be in charge of different domains: food inventory, perimeter security, medical care. This distribution of responsibility prevents any one person from burning out under the weight of it all. It also ensures that if the primary leader becomes a casualty, someone else already has the knowledge and confidence to step up. Mental resilience is a team sport. Your supplies might carry you for a month, but it is your collective mental fortitude that will carry you through to the end. If you take only one thing away from this, let it be this: prepping doesn't fail because the world collapses in the way you expected. It doesn't fail because your gear breaks or your food runs out. Prepping fails because people, in their pride and their fear, refuse to adapt. It fails because they fall in love with their plan, their stuff, their idea of what a crisis should look like. They build a rigid statue of preparedness, and when the earthquake comes, it crumbles into dust. The real world is messy, dynamic, utterly indifferent to your binder of meticulously printed plans. Survival is not a destination you arrive at by accumulating enough supplies. It is a continuous, brutal process of adaptation. It belongs to the flexible, not the strong. It belongs to the humble, not the confident. It is the art of throwing your perfect plan into the fire the moment it stops matching reality, then having the courage and creativity to build a new one from the ashes. It's about being willing to learn, to change, and to admit when you were wrong. The person who survives is not the one with the most expensive rifle, but the one who notices the wind has changed and adjusts course. Forget the cinematic fantasies of last stands and heroic battles. The real work of survival is quieter, harder, far more psychological. It's about managing fear, navigating complex human relationships, fighting a constant war against your own worst instincts, your pride, your rigidity, your love of comfort. The most important tool is a mind that remains open, observant, and willing to be proven wrong. Your gear is a temporary crutch, your supplies are a buffer. They buy you time, but they do not guarantee your future. The final lesson is humility. You are not a master of disaster, you are a student of it. Remain one, every single day. Survival belongs to those who stay flexible, humble, and aware, long after the gear stops mattering. The real prep was never about stocking shelves. It was about emptying your mind of certainty and filling it with the relentless, adaptable will to see one more sunrise, no matter how different it looks from the one they planned for.